Hmm. Greetings, friends. It's your host, Bintang back for another Friday news review. What's been happening in the world at large and here at home? Well, in Australia, we have a federal election coming up. That's the time when the major parties compete for your vote because, the whole country's about to get shafted. So, what's happening? Who are the main contenders in this current federal election? Well, we've got drums of war, mad old, dog food Dutton. He is the leader of the opposition in this country, and he is an avowed racist, bigot, pig. He's basically a bit of a cunt, really. And we have the sitting government, which is the Labor government under Anthony Albanese. And one of the problems you have, and this is actually interesting, all jokes aside, one of the problems you have with a stable, sort of moderate government, with an election where you've got an unstable, very dangerous right wing extremist government competing, and an example of this happened in America recently, is you've got a lot of catchphrases, headline grabbers coming out of the Nutter camp. Now, in Australia, Peter Dutton has been saying, he's able to announce big ticket things that get people's attention. So he said, we're going to get more F-35 fighter jets to guard us against the threat from the aggressive China. And of course, we talk a lot about that on this program. China is no threat whatsoever to this country, never has been and never will be. However, we need to spend billions of dollars instead of on things like education and hospitals on buying more F-35 fighters, the most expensive military system in history, by the way, which has been plagued with problems in its introduction. And I'm criticised by many experts as the aeroplane that's been asked to do too much. However, anyway, that grabs you. Get more F-35 fighters. That's great. He's going to slash the number of votes of public servants in Canberra, our nation's capital, which we talked about on last week's news review, which I'm sure you all watched, and both of you. And of course, he's given no rhyme or reason for that. There's no factual study to explain why we need to suddenly slash the numbers of public servants, or just any report showing that there's all these public servants sitting around doing nothing. But see, it grabs the attention of the voting electorate. And as you know, here at Bintang Bernie, we always say Bintang's first law is most people are stupid, so they just believe stuff. They don't stop to think, But it resonates well with people. Oh yeah, slash public servants because they're all on big money doing nothing. The fact that public servants are the people who provide all of your basic services, from hospitals to policing to ambulancing to defence to everything that runs the country, never crosses the little grey box inside the head, does it? So, by saying these sort of outlandish things, the other thing he said, he was pulled up recently on TV, he's going to stop the woke agenda in schools. Apparently, our education system has a woke agenda. Now, even I'm not really sure what this word woke means. It's all over the media. It's everywhere at the moment. Social media. Young people are using it, which probably explains why I'm hot in the loop. But when he was called on to ask, he was asked by a reporter, would someone actually properly put some questions to him, which is a nice change in the media. And I said, well, what do you mean by woke agenda? Of course, he couldn't explain it because he doesn't fucking know. But it's a great headline grabber, isn't it? Because all the rednecks are, yeah, woke agenda, it's all the lefties are infiltrating our school. They're teaching people humanitarian values. We need to get back to basics. Let's what was Dutton's great government proposal under a previous, Prime Minister, the nutter Tony Abbott, the Minister for Boxing, the Minister for Shirt Front, we should call him. They wanted to put Catholic priests in schools and pay for it with our tax dollars. Okay, now once again, clarifying, I've got no issue if people want to have a Catholic school and send their kids to get a Catholic education. That is their right under a free and democratic society. But I don't want to fucking pay for it. Okay? Let Catholics pay for Catholic schools. Public education in a secular country like Australia is should remain secular. But of course, Dutton's all about, woke education, and corrupting our students and indoctrinating them. But it's okay when it's the religion of your choice to indoctrinate them. On the flip side, and this is a problem we have, you have Anthony Albanese. And what does he stand for? Nobody knows, because he doesn't have any great big headline grabbing points to push at you. To say this is what we're doing. Look at this. Look at the danger. Threats of spy ships from China. Blah blah. None of that. It's just sensible, middle-of-the-road policies. Now, whether you agree with that or not is up to you. But the bottom line is the Labor Party is steering a moderate, sensible course. Now, I don't think they're perfect, just like every other political institution in this country, apart from some independents and some up-and-coming parties, which I'd urge you to have a look at the Australian Citizens Party. Sorry, getting tongue-tied. The Citizens Party has a very good list of policies and some very informed and well-rounded positions. I'm getting quite interested in those guys, so I urge you to check them out. Excuse me. So the point is that the mainstream governments, because they're mainstream, they don't have any real hard, this is what we're going to do, this is who we are, this is what we stand for. Whereas, the extremists come in and they can say all this sort of stuff. We're going to curb immigration, like Trump's done in America. It worked really well. Not that the Biden government or any saints, they're a bunch of absolute pricks who were up to their eyeballs, caused the war in Ukraine and funding the war in the genocide. Don't ever call it a war in Israel. Which, of course, Trump, the president of peace, he's now bombing the Houthis. And Shah Assad, what are they actually? Why are these people attacking ships in the Red Sea? They're standing against the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. If you wanted to be honest, 1,000% honest about it, theirs is a noble cause. They're actually fighting to stop the genocide of a people. They're not being having genocide committed against them. I was going to say genocide. That's very, very intellectual of you. They've just gotten over a hideous war where America and Saudi Arabia tried to wipe them off the face of the earth and bombed hospitals, schools, and the Americans assisted in the blockade, which saw women and children being starved, and all those wonderful things that we don't acknowledge in the world media. But these people have turned around, and although they're not under direct threat, they've said we can't stand by and let people, be subjugated like this. The horrors that's gone on. So they attack shipping in the Red Sea, and they reduce the imports into the Israeli port of Eilat, I think that's how you pronounce it, by 85%. So not only were they making a stand against genocide, they were doing it successfully, and they were doing it by striking the Israeli economy. That's something in the West that we call sanctions, which we love. But when someone else does it, what do? You go and bomb them, don't you? So these poor fuckers are being bombed. American carriers are going over there and bombing these people under the president of peace, Mr. Trump, who wants to stop all wars and bring their soldiers home. Well, with selective wars. I mean, this is the guy that just gave 2,000-pound bombs to Israel so that they could drop them on refugees and women and children living in tents. That's peaceful, isn't it? So anyway, we've digressed basically. Anyway, there's an election coming in Australia. God help us. I don't know what to do. I despise the Labor Party because just like the Liberal Party, they've sold out to the Zionists who actually control this country. I mean, we now have laws. Our freedoms have been undermined, not by China, not by Russia, by Putin, but by Zionists, by the Zionist lobby. You can go to jail for hate speech now. I mean, there are crimes. What used to be, remember in the Indian movies, the Western movies, how, you speak with forked tongue. Well, that now is an illegal gesture. This is a joke. It's an illegal gesture in this country. How can you have a situation where a simple hand gesture suddenly becomes illegal because one group of paranoid little people decide that they don't like it and it strikes exactly at them and, oh, it hurts me? Really? Seriously? It's a joke. And yet now we are being increasingly subjugated to Zionist will in this country, and that is the big danger. And unfortunately, there's very few people in the election who are prepared to stand up and fight against that. I would suggest to all of you, if you find independent candidates who are prepared to stand up, go for it. One, as I said, the Australian Citizens Party has come out with some very interesting literature where they're very open about what the threats are to Australia. And they agree, it ain't China. It's Rupert Murdoch and his media and his Zionist backers. Anyway, speaking of the media, once again, okay, as you know, it's here at the Winston Smith Project, we're very concerned with the fact that there is very, very little impartial media in the world. there is very little fact checking, and that you're not given facts, you're given opinions. You are told what to believe. Well, lately you would have seen that there's been a big explosion all over the media about conscription in Russia. Now, this is interesting. You see, because the average person, and I understand this, the average person is busy. They don't have the time to go and research and fact check, even if they have the inclination to. But they're doing things and picking kids up from school and paying mortgages and all those other things that consume us from day to day. The role of the media is actually to go and check facts and do research. That is their role, and they don't do it. So, luckily, here, old Bintang does a bit of background checking for you to find out some interesting facts. Now, in the media, there's a big hype about President Putin. It's always personalized. It's never Russia. Okay, and I've said this before. You never heard about George Bush invading Iraq. It was a coalition of the willing. I mean, that's how stupid Keir Starmer is. He had to recycle the name from the past, from an invasion which was all about lies. So actually, perhaps there's more logic to Keir than I gave credit, because this is another issue about lies. But anyway, everything about Russia is personalized to one man, Putin, because, and this is deliberate, it's easier to hate an individual than to hate an entire country. Much easier. So you personalize it. So the recruitment, not the recruitment, it is a conscription drive as ordained by Putin. You see Putin's name all over it. Putin orders this, Putin orders this. Now, let me tell you a few things about conscription. First of all, it's not news to Russia. Okay? Conscription has been going on in Russia since Soviet Union times, when they had an army of 4 million men, by the way, much larger than now. Excuse me. I get a bit tongue-tied if I don't keep my mouth closed. So conscription is part of everyday life in Russia. Has been. Nothing new. No big deal there. Conscription is also part of everyday life in several other countries around the world. Oh, what's that, Bintang? It's not just those evil Russians who conscript young men and women and force them into the front lines. It happens in other countries. Oh, yes, really, it does. In 60 other countries, there are over 60 countries in the world where conscription is mandatory, where it is law, it is part of their constitution, and where it is enforced. Some of the countries might surprise you. Now, if I said like North Korea, of course, those bastards, of course, they're evil. Okay, you've been programmed about that. What if I said Norway, where from 2015 they amended their conscription laws to conscript women as well as men? Now, funny, that wasn't all over the news media, was it? You didn't hear about that. Okay, Sweden has conscription. Latvia, Lithuania, on the Baltic regions, they have conscription. Of course, our good friends, the Israelis, they have conscription to keep that big dog of a brutal force, the IDF, carrying out its murderous rampage against civilians. And of course, Ukraine has conscription. Okay? Understandably, they're in the middle of what they would perceive as a life and death struggle. So conscription, let's be done with that. Conscription is not an issue here. Now, what also has been quoted is that conscription, Putin, once again, not Russia, not the government, not the military, Putin himself, it's all about him, has decreed that they call up 160,000 men. And this is an increase, blah, blah, blah. And you get told all these facts. So old Bintang did a bit of research and had a look and thought, well, I wonder how many people Russia has historically conscripted since it's been the Russian Federation. No point going back to Soviet times, because conscription was massive then. So let's look. Now, if we go back to 2008, now I've got these figures from a group called Global Security Organization. Look them up, globalsecurity.org. I use them for a lot of military research because they're highly credible and they do a lot of background. They come up with all this information and they just research global military affairs and statistics, and they're a good source of information. However, if you find others that are better or that disprove what I'm saying, by all means, post a reply. In 2008, okay, the Russian conscription figures, how many Russians were conscripted in that year? 352,200. Let me say that again. Over 350,000 men were conscripted by Russia in 2008. Haven't seen any big world headlines about that, did we? Oh, interesting. In 2009, This is great. The number had nearly doubled. 576,580 people were conscripted in 2009 into the Russian military. So 500,000 men. So with all this hoo-ha about Putin and his 160,000, 500,000 men in 2009 was conscripted into the Russian military. Funny. Okay, so it's not like this is some, as it's presented, some huge, massive increase. It's never been seen before. 2014, the year of the Maidan coup in Ukraine, which started this whole shit fight going off. Thank you, Barack Obama. 308,100 people conscripted in the Russian military. So 300,000 in 2014. In 2022, when the Russian special military operation started, or as we in the West like to call it, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, 2022, 254,500 conscripts into the Russian military. Okay. In 2023, 277,000 conscripts. So the point I'm making by throwing all these facts at you is a little research would show that this current intake of 160,000 into the Russian military is nothing new. It's no big, massive thing. And as, of course, as the Kiev Post represented it, it's because Russians are having a huge manpower problem. I love the Kiev Post. They take everything that's happening in Kiev and they just strike out the word Ukraine and put Russia in front of it. So yeah, apparently Russia's having a manpower problem. An army of over 1 million men. Yeah, right. So, point being that once again, this is hype. It's bullshit and it's basically lies. Why didn't the media do research? You've got the ABC, Channel 9 here, national media is all over. Well, like I say, I speak from an Australian perspective because that's the media I largely see. But it would be all over Western media about Putin and his conscript drive. As you've just seen from those figures, no big deal, nothing new, nothing out of the ordinary. Now, there is an increase in the numbers of Russian conscripts in this drive, apparently. That's normal. Conscription numbers go up and down because some time ago, the Russians, under Sergei Shoigu, he wanted to increase the size of the Russian army to 1.5 million men, and he advised the president, Mr. Putin, of that because of the increased pressure and threat from NATO. See, once again, it's always as a response to what we're doing, but it's never told that way. It's always told us that out of the blue, Russia suddenly wants to increase its military. Why? Because we were putting military bases and NATO troops on their fucking border. As I've said before, that idiot, the minister, the minister for low IQs, Liz Truss, look up NATO's enhanced forward presence. It's a lovely euphemism, isn't it? That was NATO putting NATO troops, armored battle groups, on the border of Russia. There was a big poster of Liz Truss in a Challenger battle tank with a big Union Jack flying off the back, tunneling down, I think at the time it said she was 100 kilometers from the Russian border. Well, why wouldn't Russia increase its military size? They saw all these NATO troops suddenly being deployed, battle groups with tanks and, proper actual armored formations stuck on their border. And they're supposed to do nothing. So the question begs, why did we put the battle groups on their border? All we've done is increase the size of the Russian military, which the battle groups were there to enhance peace. Okay, but of course, all you've done, of course, is up the ante, which is always what happens. So once again, all of this Russian increase in size is not specifically to do with the conflict in Ukraine. Sure, that has an impact, but it's specifically as a response to NATO aggression and provocation. Okay, that's the truth, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it and you don't want to hear it, well, fuck off. Okay, because if you close your eyes to the truth, you close your eyes to facts, you're an idiot. And you certainly don't belong here. Now, one of the things that has not been reported once again by the non-factual media is that what has been reported, I should start with, is that Putin, once again, has increased the age of the military draft up to 30. So people up to 30. It was 27, now it's up to 30. Okay, well, once again, I'll tell you, that's straight out as a lie. Now, is it being increased, the military draft age, the age where you're eligible for conscription from 27 to 30? Yes, totally true. But the reasons behind it are not what's being presented. You're told that's the statement. Putin has ordered. That was what I read in the media today. Putin has ordered. See, because that plays into you little kernels that they place in there with the propaganda that Putin's just a dictator. He just orders it and goes ahead. Okay? All right? That's a lie. Because on the 13th of March 2023, okay, so we're going back, okay, almost exactly 2 years. You can count. The chairman of the Duma Defense Committee, who is a guy called Andrei Kartopolov, I hope I pronounced that right. Andre, it's probably Andre. He was chairman of the Duma Defense Council, and he put a bill to the lower house in Russia asking to increase the conscription age up to 30. Tells you a couple of things. First of all, as I've said often, Russia is a parliamentary democracy. Okay, it has a parliamentary lower and upper house who pass bills, debate them, defeat them, whatever, and if they're passed, then they're ratified by the president. Okay, same as in any other presidential democracy around the world. No different. But of course, you're told and you're led to believe that Putin's a dictator. So, firstly, Putin ordering this, which is how it's presented, this increase in age is a lie because Putin didn't order it. The Defense Council, the chairman of the Duma Defense Council, that's the government defense council, like every country in the world has it, like we have here, defense councils and defense chiefs who advise Parliament, put the bill forward saying we should adjust the draft age up to 30. Why did they do that? Because the draft age had been from 18 to 27. Sorry, I'll just do this again. I know it's really annoying. It doesn't affect you, but my screen goes blank and I can't see myself. It's a bit egocentric, doesn't it? But it's very disconcerting when I just get this blank screen from my computer. There we go, I'm back again. So, okay, let me give you an example of how this is misrepresented. The conscription age was 18 to 27 in Russia, and the Russians decided that 18 was a bit young for people to be put into military service, and they wanted to increase it to 21. But in order to maintain stability within the draft system, which is a key component, sorry, I shouldn't say the word draft, conscription, okay? It is conscription, mandatory forced conscription. A key component of the Russian military is the conscription, okay, that people are brought in and they do military service, as I said, like they do in many other countries. So they decided 18 was too low. People shouldn't start before they're 21. They're a bit young at 18. Let them, grow up a bit before we start teaching them how to use guns. Nothing majorly wrong with that. So they started over a period of years to alter the ages of the conscription system. So, for example, okay, in 2024, okay, the conscription age went up 1 year, went from 19 to 30. So it was already at 30, okay, in 2024. 2025, this year, it's gone from 20 to 30. So in other words, the lie, and this is my point, the lie you've been fed, Putin increased, orders the military to increase the conscription age to 30. Also this year, the conscription age went from 19 to 20. So in other words, the conscription age is not necessarily increasing, it's just moving in demographics from 18 to 27, 19 to 30, 20 to 30, and in 2026, next year, under Russian law, and this is the law which was raised in the parliament, in the parliamentary system, which Putin as president has ratified, it will be 21 to 30. That will be the conscription age. Okay, so it's gone up by 3 years at the top end, but it's also gone up by 3 years at the bottom end, with a slight lag over effect, obviously, to stabilize the conscription system. So this hoo-ha, this bullshit, these lies that you're being fed about Putin ordering an increase in the age of conscription, it's not true at all. He didn't order anything. He ratified a law which quite sensibly said 18's a bit young, let's raise the draft age to 21, and consequently, to keep the numbers stable, we'll increase the upper limit from 27 to 30. Not 3 off the bottom, 3 on the top. Okay? No big deal, no big issue. But of course, you're programmed again. Yeah. Isn't Putin evil? Just like at the moment, all the stories about Australia, about the Chinese research vessel. Read media in this country and see how many times the word research vessel is put in inverted commas. Now, for those of you who don't know, recently a Chinese research ship has been operating in the region of Australia. Okay, not in our territorial waters, not right next to a coast. They're just sailing around doing shit. Now, they may be spying, they may be gathering intelligence, like every other nation on Earth does, like we do continually about the Chinese. But we have no evidence. Whatever happened to that wonderful, you know, uh, uh, key cornerstone of justice, the presumption of innocence? Now, if you can tell me, if you can show me evidence that this Chinese ship is a spy ship and is actively engaged in intelligence gathering, then yeah, I'll wear it. It's a spy ship. But the Chinese are saying it's a research vessel. It's painted like a civilian ship, and it seems to be conducting oceanic research. Yeah? Now, that may or may not be true, but why the inverted commas every time you mention research vessel? You don't hear that, an American research vessel, American peacekeepers. Once again, it's this continual, slant on the media. Give me facts. Do research, you lazy fuckers. If you can find out that it's a spy ship, if there's a history of Chinese conducting spy surveillance on Australia, well, they're worthy news stories. I'd like to hear them. I'd like to see them. But don't just pluck figures out the air and just put inverted commas and things. This other thing. And conducting research. Everything's in inverted commas. You know, it's absolutely comical, but it's dangerous because it's made to force you to think a certain way. The Chinese have reacted about it because, of course, Dogmeat Dutton, opposition leader, of course, is calling at the current government. They're not taking enough action. They're not doing stuff about. What do you want us to do, Peter? You want us to go and bomb a Chinese research vessel it's in international waters by itself with no military escort? What exactly is it you want, Peter? And as a result, in the Chinese media today came out an article about Peter Dogmeat Dutton, our opposition leader, and how biased he is, how he's got things so wrong, and how he's stirring up fear and propaganda. You see, you've got to watch. If you listen to intelligent people like, say, Colonel Douglas McGregor, he appears on Danny Davis's Deep Dive. I urge you to watch that show from time to time because you get intelligent people with intellect saying things that you need to think about. It's not how we perceive China, which is important. It's how the Chinese perceive us, which is important. You have to look at the mentality, the psyche, the national psyche. Nations have national psychology based on their experience, their past. Why do the Russians get so antsy about the West? Because we've lied to them, we've undermined them, we've tried to destroy them since 1945, even before that. I'm going to do a book review. I'm reading an interesting book called Barbarossa by a guy called Dimbleby. I'll do a review on that about how Stalin actually tried to make a treaty with Britain before the war against Germany because he knew Germany was going to attack. And the Brits, Churchill, of course, wanted nothing to do with it. So has a lot to do with the background behind the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. But anyway, digressing. So, as I was saying, intelligent people look at how we are perceived by the other side. That's the key to understanding diplomacy, international relations. Of course, none of our deadhead leaders in the world at the moment get that. So the Chinese are rightly annoyed by this, and they see us continually drumming up anti-China sentiment. And their viewpoint is, and I've stated it repeatedly, why not have a more open, honest, and adult relationship with us? And we just trade, which is what we do. China is our biggest trading partner. They're worth billions to the Australian economy. Why do we keep wanting to annoy them? And the fact that they have one ship down here, which is a non-armed, it's I've seen pictures of the ship. It just looks like a research vessel to me. Maybe a spy ship, but certainly it ain't some aircraft carrier battle group. And what do we have sailing up and down the Taiwan Strait? Our ships, going alongside American carrier groups. So they've got to put up with aircraft carriers sailing off their coast. Yet they have a research vessel near us, and we keep getting told it's a sign of Chinese aggression. Now that does deserve to be in inverted commas. So once again, I'm stuck with the age-old adage of your media lies to you, your government lies to you, and you have no hope unless you actually do a lot of research of finding out the facts and the truth. So your opinion will not be valid, because there's bullshit about everyone's opinion is valid. No, if your opinion is not based on factual information, then I declare it invalid. If your opinion is based on factual information and it conflicts with mine, then it's valid. But don't speak bullshit. And that's what's happening because you're being fed bullshit and you're regurgitating what you hear. Anyway, this has been Tang Bernie signing off for another, I hope not too long-winded. I know I tend to rabbit on a bit, but these issues are important and they need to be addressed. Here's to hopefully an interesting federal election here in Australia. Here's to hopeful that the Liberal National Party, which are a bunch of lunatics, they're nutters, keep them out of government, please. They're dangerous. The Labor Party, unfortunately, is, as well as the great juice media calls it, the shit party and the shit light party, because neither one of them is really good. Look at your independents, look at your alternatives, vote with your head, okay, and do some research. So Bintang Bernie signing off and saying farewell, my friends, until next Friday. Peace.